Hi, everyone. My name is Lynn McEntee, and I'd like to welcome you to Spotlight on Youth Matters because you matter. We're here for you today, and we're talking about a variety of things, but we're going to be talking about social awareness and youth activism. Part of Spotlight on Youth Matters, actually, we have some underlying core themes I'd like to underscore is youth matters of the heart, community building, and being your authentic self. That's truly what it's about, and we want to do a shout out to Youth for Change Canada for allowing us to be here. Before we carry on, we'd like to do a land acknowledgement for wherever we are today on a virtual platform. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous people of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we call home. So welcome to everyone. Welcome on a virtual platform. And Youth for Change Canada has a vision, and I'll just cover that before we get into our programming today. Youth for Change's vision is to provide marginalized youth the opportunity to live wholesome, successful, and enriching lives through engaging, dynamic programs while stimulating positive social change and bridging people in the community for mentorship opportunities as well. We're here with some movers and shakers in the youth community, and I can't wait to get started in our conversation. Please follow us on social media, give us a like, and if you have any ideas for programming, we'll see what we can do for you. Again, thank you to Youth for Change Canada for allowing us to be here. As I mentioned, we're talking about social activism, social awareness, and youth activism. And we have some wonderful guests here today. So I'm just going to go around and we'll have everyone introduce themselves a little bit more. I'll do a little intro, but I'm going to start out actually with Jennifer Palermo, who is the Community Engagement Coordinator for Community Living. Jennifer's joining us today, but she's here for virtual support as well. And so we'll just start with her introduction, but we'll focus on the youth that are here today and what they bring to the table, and we'll shine light on them. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Lynn. How are you? Thank you for having me today.
I'm doing great. And just thank you for being here. And just, I'm so excited that you have introduced me to this collective, and I can't wait to get started. So thank you, Jennifer. Is there anything you wanted to say before we get rolling?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity for our youth advisory committee members to come and speak to the great work that they're doing and the great and unique experiences that we do have. We are coming on behalf of Community Living Ontario, which is an advocacy organization, and we have been advocating for individuals with disabilities and their families for nearly 70 years. And some of our youth members have been here for a while, so they're going to bring today a lot of wisdom and, like I said, some really great experiences. So I'll pass it back to you, and I look forward to our chat this evening.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And underscore 70 years. That's a long time. And what a solid organization for providing the services for a 70-year period and plus. So that's incredible. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate that. I was going to start out with Sarah Julius. And Sarah, I have a little bio, but we'll kind of go on from there. I know you've got an extensive bio actually, but so Sarah is actually studying concurrent education. She is at the University of Windsor and also at St. Clair College. She said she's 19 years old, and I'm just going to let her take it from there and we'll go on from there.
Yeah, thank you so much for introducing me, Lynn. Yes, my name is Sarah, and I am in the concurrent education program with psychology and ECE. And I guess I'll explain what that is because not many people know what it is. So I'm used to always explaining the program. So it's essentially like a 5-year program that will prepare you to become a teacher. So after high school, after I graduate university, I'll be able to have 2 degrees in psychology and education and an early childhood education diploma. So usually when you want to become a teacher, you have to take a 4-year program of your undergrad, then a 2-year teacher's college, and then become a teacher. But for me, I knew I wanted to become a teacher, so I got into teacher's college and into my program of choice right after high school. So I'll be able to finish all that stuff in 5 years. And after that, hopefully become a teacher. And yeah, so yes, I've always wanted to work with youth and work with children. It's been a passion of mine, which explains why I want to become a teacher and why I'm a part of the Youth Advisory Committee. So I'm just so excited to be here and looking forward to the conversations we'll have this evening.
That's awesome, Sarah. Thank you so much for taking care of your introduction there. Really appreciate that. And that was tell us about yourself section. And thank you for our listeners and viewers that are tuning in. I really appreciate you being here. We're really all about youth and underscoring what all the youth can do in our communities. So thank you a lot for being here and joining us. I'm going to hop over, if you're okay, Nicole, to Cameron for a moment. So Cameron Stanger. So Cameron, I have a mini bio for you too, but I'm going to let you take it away after that, just out of respect for you all being here tonight. So Cameron is a chemistry student from Toronto Met University, Toronto Metropolitan University. He's also on the Youth Advisory. He's a co-chair for the Youth Advisory Committee. All right, take it away, Cameron.
Yes, thank you. As stated, yes, I am a chemistry student at Toronto Metropolitan University. Not everyone's familiar with the new name, so I will also say it was formerly known as Ryerson University. Recent name change and all of that. And some people might wonder why I'm in a science degree while also doing activism, but the reason why I do that is because I think activism definitely has a role to play in society overall, and it's not just exclusive to degrees that relate to that field.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cameron. That's also a very good launching point. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Alrighty, I'm going to jump over to Nicole Canzoneri. And I have a mini bio for her and a more extensive one for everyone, but we'll just start out with the mini one. Nicole said she's a university student and she's studying at the University of Windsor. Yeah. All right, Nicole. And I could do a little bit more here, but you're on the Youth Advisory Committee. You are the past chair. Is that correct? Yeah. Alrighty. And could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much. So my name is Nicole Canzoneri. I am 22 years old. I am the past chair of Reaction for Inclusion, which is Community Living Ontario's Youth Advisory Committee. I'm the current secretary for it. And recently I was elected to be director at large for the board of directors for Community Living Ontario. So a new stage for me. I am at the University of Windsor. I'm studying disability studies, which again, like Sarah mentioned, for her program, not a ton of people know what it is. There's not so many options for it in Ontario specifically, but we look at the community, culture, and policy in modern times and throughout history for people with disabilities. And it really takes an intersectional look through many different disciplinaries at how disability intersects with everything. So it's really focused on everything and anything with a disability-oriented lens. Through Community Living Ontario, I've got to do a lot of amazing work. I started when I was 14 years old as an attendee for some of their conferences in person.
Really?
And, yeah, and I've gotten to the point now where a few years back, I got to help host their Truths of Institutionalization project, which is an educational tool for teachers or anyone to use to teach about the history of institutionalization. So I have a long and rich and loving history with Community Living Ontario and the work they do with youth.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. Jennifer, did you want to jump in for anything? Are you okay at this moment? No, carry on, everyone. That's wow, it's interesting. It's so, if we just take a moment in life to learn and grow and just explore, there's so much available to us, and as we're talking about the organization of community living, it's 70 plus years. So think of all the lives that it's affected, throughout this time. It's amazing. And we have present day youth here that are here at the table today, contributing to the conversation. We did issue some questions. We may bridge into some informal things as well too. We've asked our guests today to talk about themselves a little bit, but one of the questions that was posed was, what does the term social awareness in the context with youth activism mean to you? And I'm going to jump over to Sarah again, if that's okay. And once again, I'm just going to repeat for anybody that's tuning in, what does the term social awareness in context with youth activism mean to you?
Yeah, so for me, social awareness means like taking on many different perspectives, especially from those who are from different backgrounds and cultures. I really think that when you do take on different perspectives, you're able to really recognize the strengths of the others and what they provide to the community, and really just working together and making change happen. And also it includes being empathetic and compassionate towards others, because I feel like that really is the key to being socially aware and what creates the change that we want to see in society.
So yeah, absolutely, Sarah. So the emotional intelligence is really what's required, for the knowledge, the ability to be able to feel that, feel what the need is, and read the room, so to speak. Is that what you say? Yeah, yeah, for sure. No,
Yes, yeah.
no, for sure. It's interesting because left and right brain learning, is very different, but there's often a crossover too, right? Yeah, so that's cool that you mentioned that. I thank you for underscoring those other things there. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Cameron, I'm going to jump over to you. Same question for anybody that's already heard it, and I think you've heard the question. I'm just underscoring what's the difference or what's the comparison in the context of social awareness and youth activism, and what do they mean to you?
Yeah, I kind of think it's a different approach than what's already been stated, and that is sort of I've at least noticed a lot, especially on campus when talking to my peers, that not a lot of people know what's going on, especially when it comes to our government or when it comes to those in higher powers. Not a lot of people are aware. And so it's not just a social awareness of knowing common interactions or knowing what's going on within your groups. It's knowing that above step. It's knowing what's going on with those in power, because realistically in activism we see a lot of protests that occur within activism that is related to what the government's done, and so a lot of people get caught up in that without really knowing what they're advocating for. And so it's really it makes me question whether a lot of people in those protests are authentic, because it's some people view it as, especially in high school, as a way to get out of class rather than actually advocate for the matter at hand. So really, I think in terms of youth activism, we have to also be more aware of what's going on in government. And as uncomfortable as it might be, we do need to sort of know a bit of politics. I've noticed a lot of youth don't know that much about that. So
Do you want to expand upon that a little more, Cameron? You're welcome to. I think before we
yeah.
jump into Nicole, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what I basically mean is, like, we've seen in recent late that there's definitely a lot of more social media activity, especially regarding to political parties and leaders. And we've seen like a lot of leaders and politicians. I just want to highlight one that I've noticed anyway, scrolling through my feed. The recent like conservative leader Pierre Polyev, he's been active on social media, and so a part of that activism is being aware of these leaders who are posting their posts and their ideals on social media, and how that will impact society and how it will push it forward. Because if you're going to be an activist and you're going to talk about issues, if you're not aware of leaders like that who are posting on social media, then you're not really going to move the conversation forward or know exactly what you're advocating for. Because if you're not aware of what the government's doing or what the opposition's trying to do, then you're not really aware of what's going on in the system. And that just leads to ineffective activism and ineffective protests and ineffective action being taken.
Social conditioning. Yes, yeah, I know for sure. Thank you for expanding that. I know that we'll probably double back on that as well in our conversation. It's definitely worth addressing for sure. Nicole, same thing. Would you be able to bridge on piggyback from what Sarah had said, and Cameron as well? Please and thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was not planned, but my perspective of social awareness in the context of youth activism is kind of a middle ground, or a combination of both what Sarah said and what Cameron said. So I think there's like a large scale and a small scale to it. So on a larger scale, I think at a young age, and I'm not young to a lot of people anymore in the youth sector, but at a young age, I think a lot of times people don't expect us to be aware and to, like Cameron was saying, to know a lot of maybe some higher level ideas like government and stuff like that. People expect us to just be not serious or to just be young. And so I think on a large scale, it's being aware of what's going on in your community and society, at an age when people don't expect you to. So I think it's kind of defying those odds a little bit. And then on a smaller scale, I think, again, when people don't expect you to, I think it's understanding the context in which you live in. So I mentioned before we got started, I'm from Windsor. That's a very unique geographic location, not only in Canada and Ontario, but in the world for a ton of different reasons. But so that affects the way I grew up, the people I'm surrounded with, the communities, the history, and being aware of that from a young age, I think has amplified my youth activism. So I think for me, there's the macro and the micro, and they have to kind of happen in harmony for you to understand and to have that social awareness.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you. I wonder if we can stay on this for a moment, a little bit longer for all of us. Sarah, did you want to add into that at all? You maybe had some time to think about some of the conversation after you as well. Did you want to add in at all?
Yeah, I do like to make a point of what Nicole said and how I do believe that the environment you grew up in really affects your mindset and how socially aware you are of what's happening around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I have a question for all of you then. So it's systematic, yes, systematical changes, but is it different in Windsor as opposed to in Toronto, or is it different in Toronto as opposed to, let's say another part of the world? Or are some of the commonalities the same? Anybody else, want to jump? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in particular for Windsor, for an example, we have really close ties with the United States. I can see Detroit from, I can see the bridge leading to Detroit from my window out here. So that definitely, like going on a large scale, how Cameron was talking about governments, that plays a massive role. So like for COVID, for example, a lot of our workforce couldn't work because they couldn't cross the international border. So I had to understand how that was impacting the Windsor economy and the Windsor citizens' experience day to day. We also have, I don't know why, but we have a lot of older people, like per capita. We have one of the highest in the province, I believe. So again, the pandemic affected us differently. So there's definitely those unique features of Windsor. And again, that's from my personal experience. But a lot of my family has lived around the GTA and in the GTA currently. And it has different unique features like that. Yeah. But there is also this commonality between not only just two cities in Ontario, but across the world. And Cameron kind of mentioned social media a little bit. And I think that has connected us quite a bit across Canada, across the world. We're seeing some of this youth activism happen on that platform. So I think I never realized how common a lot of youth struggles are, and a lot of just struggles in the world are, as well as I haven't always appreciated the uniqueness of the specific location I'm in. So the physical location, but also like the identity location, if that makes sense. That's so for me, I am a white woman who does not have to struggle financially. So that puts me in a unique identity location compared to someone else. And that in combination with me being from Windsor, my geographic location, creates a really unique intersecting point where I am, but also all these threads that attach me to different communities and different people with those commonalities.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cameron, did you want to jump in there? Yeah, go for it. Thank you, Sarah.
I kind of did, but this might be a bit controversial, but I kind of want to challenge that idea of systemic and getting to some of that identity. What some people refer to as identity politics and identities just in general, talking about that, because if we sort of see this as a systemic issue and then consider it like a big, broad issue, and that's what the politicians do all the time. They consider it like, oh, we have this issue of systemic ableism, and it's a huge, rampant problem, and then they do nothing to fix it. They don't introduce any bills. They don't introduce anything to fix the problem. And so when we consider it systemic, it's just a talking point for politicians. They can just say, "Oh, this is a huge systemic issue. We can't fix this possibly. We can't possibly fix this because of how big the problem is."
Mhm.
And then to boil down everything to just identities is further dividing us. So that's what the rich elites want,
Mm.
is to further divide us by say, oh, so and so is this identity and so this identity, and sort of divide us between those lines rather than us uniting together against those who wish to govern us and rule us, rather than, actually let us speak for ourselves and let us make change. It's basically the control mechanism within our society, at least in my opinion. Might lose me some friends, but that's just my take.
No, it is, and it is what it is. That's your personal take on it for sure, and that's to be validated, right? I think, and when people come to the table to have conversations, people need to be listened to and heard. They may have different opinions, but that's okay, right? And as a young person, moving into the world and moving throughout the world, you want to establish yourself for sure. So, no, well put and eloquently said. Absolutely. I wondered if then maybe we could just talk about. Um, Maybe as a younger person, I think we'll go to the question, have you always been socially attuned then? Because we're talking about the system. And so we're all familiar with the system and the system that we've all gone through, different narratives, of course. But that being said, it's to be valued, your opinions. Have you always been socially attuned and aware as a young person? And if so, what was the moment that you took note of cause in any form? And it can be anyone who wants to take this first. You let me know. Sarah, would you like to go first, or no pressure? Yeah.
Yeah, I can go. I've always been open to listening to different media outlets and knowing what's happening around me in the world. I think that's very important that I know, because I found that the next day at school, the teachers will be talking about it, other people will be talking about it. And I wanted to be sure to have an understanding of what was happening so that I can contribute to the conversation and listen to other people's input and feedback. I think high school was when I started to feel more empowered and more willing to create change.
Nice.
There have been many issues. For example, I'm really passionate about education. So hearing about how back many years ago, before COVID even happened, teachers were going on strike. And just hearing about how there were different pay, wages, something along those lines. And it just made me really curious, oh, this is really not fair, because this is really affecting the children who are being educated, because they had to close schools because of strikes. So as someone who wants to be a future educator myself, I was I need to know what's happening. I need to get understanding of what's happening, so that when I'm an educator myself, I'm aware, And then it just started, my passion and love for activism started from that moment, just educating myself, being aware, educating my others and friends. Not many of them are aware of different politicians, so I'd be hey, this is NDP and this is them, and explaining what's happening about
Nice.
politics to them. Then COVID happened, and the things happened, George Floyd and anti-racism and all that stuff. It really made me feel okay, I need to say something, because all of these years I've been quiet about it. And as a Black woman, I really wanted to say something, because for many, many years I've had so many people be so racist to me and discriminatory against me. And I didn't really know how to say it, but that moment was I need to say something. And I did. So I really used my social media for a lot of stuff to express to others how I really felt. I had conversations with friends, and yeah, I still continue to fight for anti-racism and as a future educator, I really want to instill that in my classroom through many different forms of outlets, especially through books, so people feel represented of many different backgrounds, no matter their ability, their race, how they look, who they love. So I think that was really what inspired me and has created the person I am today. And yeah.
Wow. I'm very much so. That's lived experiences, right? And just
Mhm.
no one else can tell the story any better than you can, right? And so
Mhm.
that's what you're sharing with us today, and truly appreciate that. And anti-racist education is anti just that, right? It's
Mhm.
rising to the occasion to be an anti-racist educator, right?
Mhm.
Because that's where it stops. That's where the buck should stop, right? Right there.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to come back to you on a couple of things there, but I'll kind of bridge around our squares
Sounds good.
and see where we can go with this. Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate that. Cameron, or is it Nicole? Nicole, 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 do you want to take this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that. So I think from a young age I did have some social attuneness and social awareness, and kind of building off what Cameron said too, talking about the systemic and the identity. Personally, like, I know it's very frustrating on a political level, but for me, I found a lot of strength in the systematic similarities. So so though sometimes politically it's used as that tool to say, oh, we can't do anything, it's systematic, I found a lot of strength in knowing that it was universal almost. Like Sarah said, with social media, during the Black Lives Matter movement at its peak, it brought together a lot of people who were feeling the same things and maybe didn't know. And so I also felt that from a young age, not necessarily through social media, but when I first discovered like these systematic connections. But then also on another level, the identity part, I also find comfort in that I am so I'm so unique that my identity can't be compared, and I can't compare myself. So from a young age, I really struggled with some mental health issues, and now I'm comfortable enough to call it a psychiatric disability, but I wasn't for a long time. And part of the reason I can call it that is because I have loved to look at all the things that make me me and all those unique points of my identity and say, I cannot compare myself to anyone. That's just not fair. But at the same time, being like, oh, I'm part of a larger community, part of the disability community, but also part of the mental health community, young people with mental health. And so, and that's kind of like connecting the points. So from a young age, I struggled a lot in school to just attend. I was so anxious. And I found that I tended to look at who else seemed to be feeling this way. And obviously I couldn't tell how they were feeling, but I'd be like, oh, you also don't go out for recess. You also seem to be missing some school. And I felt a lot of comfort in that way. And then in high school, I couldn't stay in the regular stream for a while. I had to go to a specialized school where I did a combination of earning my credits and receiving therapy in the afternoon, as well as very basic, just self-care, self-love stuff. And so that really segregated my education. And though I understand it was amazing for me, it's what I needed to get through that really tumultuous age. I started to notice that just how different the high school experience is. And that aligned me with a lot of friends who were in the special education department in my high school, because we were segregated. Though we were in the same building, they had their own classrooms, hallways, all that stuff. And as I became friends with a lot of people who had intellectual disabilities, intellectual and developmental disabilities, I noticed that the extra school curriculars and activities just weren't the same. They did not get invited to the things I got invited to. And it almost made me laugh, because even though I was at a different school for therapy, they still let me participate in my homeschool sporting teams. So that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. I think I just got lucky, and maybe people didn't notice that I was kind of seemed to be breaking the rules. But then why can't my friend who has autism participate on the same team? And so I started to notice, I'd be like, man, they could do it for me. So clearly they perceive my disability very different than my peers. And so it kind of lit a fire under me that I was just like, that is just so mean. I want my friends to be with me, like partially selfish. I wanted my friends to be with me. And it was around that age as well. I also got connected with Community Living Ontario's youth conferences in person. And again, this was the time where I wasn't really attending school. So getting to partake in something like that when I wasn't committed to an education full time was a really good opportunity for me to get around like-minded people. And when I realized, oh, this is what I've been thinking, it's disability activism that I care about. This is that collective feeling. And I got to be in a room with adults who had made their careers off this and young people who were also like, hey, I don't get to do that either. It really, once I got that collective identity and like saw how it wasn't just me, but I was also unique, I felt a lot of comfort. And it's been almost a decade since then. And so it really started off as I grew up, my own experiences, as well as having friends with disabilities.
No, I lit the fire under your feet. Yes, no, that's cool. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Cameron, jumping into the conversation. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So probably my perspective, actually, even though I started in activism in 2016, I just didn't really feel like I fit into the activism. I just felt like an outlier for like the past, through high school, through like even a bit of university. I really felt detached from the activism. And sometimes I sort of do still to this day, and that's just because I can't really explain it, but it's sort of like I feel like I'm a part of it, but not really. Which like it still feels like a bit of a disconnect for me. But what really made me socially aware is looking at the protests during the COVID pandemic and during just in general, like looking back to some of the Indigenous pipeline protests. You really see that people are protesting and trying to tell their government, hey, we're not okay with this. And then you see the police just brutally suppressing, like it's not even like it's in a way that's not okay. And I will say, like, there were definitely blockades. Like, there have been points out where there are blockades to the rail system. And I think in situations where there is a blockade, sure, move the blockade, keep the economy going, but don't disrupt the protests as a whole. Don't tell all the protesters to go away. Rather than, just brutally suppressing protests, offer alternative solutions first. Offer a compromise first. And so when we look more specifically what happened in February of last year in Ottawa, that was another example of people protesting, definitely fringe people. I'm not saying I agree with them, but it's another example of the government sending in a police force and using authoritative powers to suppress a protest. Now, were all the protesters there, like, I want to say sane or, great people? Probably not. But, saying that they deserve to be suppressed, and deserve to have the police come down on them, and the use of the Emergency Act like that is a big disservice, especially when we've learned from the public inquiry that the blockades that were going on at the borders were cleared out before the use of the Emergencies Act. All those blockades were cleared and like at the border. And it sort of to me seems like, I don't know, it was just sort of a wake-up call for me. It was sort of like, I'm seeing injustice being done. But by like some power going down on the people who want to peacefully protest. Not saying all the people there are peaceful protesters, but those who were peaceful protesters deserve to be there and say what they want, even if we disagree with them, even if we think they're crazy. They need to have their voices heard equally. It's the rights that we have, and it just sort of was a wake-up call to me that so easily a government could use such an act and then in my opinion, unjustified manner, even though it was found to be justified by a committee. I strongly disagree with that finding based on what I saw.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Can you walk us back, Cameron, and maybe just in terms of going through school and such, where you maybe had some awakenings, I guess, in terms of an awareness and the need for activism and the need to be conscious of things that were going on maybe in front of you and or in the education field or in our communities, even as a younger person than you are now?
I didn't really see anything because I grew up in a smaller town, and so there wasn't as many students. There's like a high school 500 to 700, including an out like grade 7, 8 section. There's definitely issues with those with special needs. But I actually found that some of the teachers at my school did a better job of including people than the universities I went to.
Really?
I actually found, I honestly found that some of the high school teachers that I was with, especially in my physics class in grade 12, shout out to Mr. Good if he ever listens to this.
Mr. Gertie?
He Mr. Good.
Good. Mr. Good.
He really included a classmate of mine in the physics class before the pandemic happened. This was like just a few weeks before in March that announcement was made that we were going online. And so it was just like, when I saw that, it was amazing. It was just like, that's so great. Like, sure, like he included the classmate, but because the classmate, I guess, couldn't really do all the same assignments as us due to how they had it structured. He made sure to take the time to set aside to talk to that student and to provide an alternative assignment for that student so they could still participate in the class. They can still be a part of the class. And that just that really stuck out to me during high school. I still remember that to this day.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. That raising the bar for sure there, right? That's cool. No, thank you for sharing that. Mr. Good, if you're out there listening, tuning in, shout out to you from Cameron. It's important to share those things as well too for people, right? Because we hear a lot of our negative in our world, but it's nice to shine light on those that are rising above and going above and beyond. Not even above and beyond, I guess, but more being an equalizer, right? Yeah. Well, I'm still with you, Cameron. Before I switch over to another square, another person, is that possible that you could maybe speak to sort of elementary school and if there was any teacher or educator out there that would have stood out to you that really you maybe learned from, or you thought, oh, you know what, I'd really like to do that, or good for them for recognizing the students needed this, or yeah.
Now you're really asking me to think back way far. It's not always a comfortable memory for me to go down, but like when I was in elementary school, I was definitely probably more of a troublesome kid. Definitely more of a troublemaker. Not too many people know that about me.
Thank you for sharing.
Definitely wasn't the best behaved student, but that was because I was younger and I was still trying to work through the fact that I was autistic and all that stuff. And in grade, I believe it was 4 or 5. Like, it's hard to remember exactly when because it's so far back. But there's this one teacher I had. I will never forget him because he did like all these bonus activities and he did all of this. Absolutely, he was he was sometimes a bit hard on me, I felt, but not like completely hard. But like that's based on my memory, and he really inspired me to continue on. Really was an inspiration to me. Definitely taught me a few things that I haven't forgotten to this day. Definitely still had an impact on me, but it was so long ago.
Yeah.
I wish I could get back in touch with him, but it's been far too long. I he retired before I left, I believe. He's no longer a teacher at my school or my elementary school, and it was yeah, but I guess sort of to get a bit personal here. During like some of my final years at that elementary school before I moved away, his and I'm not saying names because this is a bit personal, and I do want to protect identities just in case. But his father passed away during our class, and we during when I was in his class during my grade 4 or 5, me and the other students were aware that some things were going on with his father because he had to leave class sometimes to make sure he was okay. And so I sort of got to pay back a bit when we were allowed to attend the funeral because we were some of his students. We
Wow.
were able to leave class to attend the funeral. Our elementary school allowed it, and I was grateful for that.
Wow.
And even though I shook a hand at first because I'm not always knowing what's socially appropriate, he sort of said something like no hug or something, but gave him a hug and said like I'm here for you, like
Mhm.
all that. And I think he
Oh.
appreciated that. So it's sort of like I was able to pay back in that sort of way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Cameron. It's personal. And I even think of a history teacher that I had. I was able to catch him before he left the country. And just by chance, that was the day he was leaving. And I ran into him. I'm so glad I had a moment with him to pass on all the wonderful comments and how much he uplifted me as a young person to know that I was seen and I was heard. And it just meant so much to me to be able to pass it on. And I feel like there was a reason that we met that day before he left the country. So I was so fortunate to have that. Thank you, Cameron, for sharing that. So for anyone that's tuning in and listening in, we're talking about social awareness and youth activism. We've got amazing guests here. I'm learning and growing along the way, and it's all about being welcome at the table, recognizing what everyone brings to the table. And that's what we're here about today. So thank you to Youth for Change Canada for allowing us to be here. I wonder, did anybody want to jump into what Cameron was saying, or shall we groove on to some of the other things? Yeah. Okay, I think I will. So then if we're talking about the workplace, what are some key elements that you think are required in the workplace for diversity and inclusion, for being socially active and aware, and personal requirements for our workplace in order to be productive contributors? Who would like to take that one? Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
I thought of this question. It was a really good question, and I think there are so many different skills that people can bring into the workplace. But for me, I think the most important is creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. I learned in class that these are the 4 skills, the 21st century skills, and that these skills really help you and allow you to solve problems that are happening and see problems in like a new light, and to be open in how you are able to solve these problems. And I think having these skills are very important because we're going to encounter many different situations in life and many different obstacles, and it's really important that we work together and think of creative ways we can learn to tackle these problems. And it really allows us to listen to what other people have to say, which is where that collaboration aspect comes in, and really understand people's perspectives in ways we can solve and address the situations that come towards us in a sense. Yeah.
Can you underscore those 4 again, Sarah, please, and thank you.
Creativity,
Thank you.
collaboration, communication, and critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyone out there, don't forget to cultivate that. Thank you, Sarah. That's awesome. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, I'll jump over to Nicole. And Nicole, same thing.
Yeah, so I took my answer more is maybe from a selfish point, what I think the employers, what is required on their end. And what Sarah said, I think also applies to them. Not only do young people entering the workforce or in the workforce need those skills, but so do the people who might be hiring us. So for me, I put education as the first one. So there's so much wonderful research and data showing what are barriers for young people and young people with disabilities to entering the workforce. And shout out Community Living Essex County and Community Living Windsor and Sarah herself and a lot of other young people who did some of this information gathering. And it can't just be a one-way street. So we're learning new skills, and I'd like to say as a youth collective, we're trying pretty hard to be employed in a meaningful and authentic way, but it needs to be a team. It needs to be an ally. It can't just be, I think we're kind of done with the traditional way of the one-way street, the hierarchy in such a rigid form. So I know personally for me, the more of a two-way street it is, the better work you're going to get out of me, no matter if I love the work or not, no matter if I'm there originally because it's a paying job. So I think education, and I think it's important to highlight that education has to come from people with lived experience, not say adult allies who are speaking on our behalf, but rather the 16-year-old who's about to enter the workforce for the first time, not their parents, for example. But on top of education, I also think, again, on that kind of concept of going away with the rigidity of employment, I think we need to be more acceptable of flexibility and accommodations. And by that, I don't just mean for young disabled people going into the workforce, but anyone. So flexibility could be like with understanding school schedules. It's not that steady 9 to 5 every day. It's nothing for a few months, then exams. It's so understanding that maybe don't schedule the 17-year-old every day her exam week. Like maybe check in with them, have that flexibility, that understanding, and that acceptance that accommodations have to be there, as well as using technology. Like I know there's a lot to be said for professionalism in the workplace, but I know I do better when I have a headphone in my ear and I'm listening to music. Unless I have to be talking with people, I understand there's always a time and a place, but personally, it's a sensory thing, it's a comfort thing, it's a productivity thing. I might be listening to a podcast, I could be doing anything, but it will make me a better worker. So some places I think would be like, absolutely not. You need to be professional, you need to do it how it's been done. But like I said, you get a lot better work out of me and better use of my time and everyone's money and more productivity all around if you're more flexible. So I could go on. There's so many simple, cost-free or low-cost accommodations. But I think it goes back to what Sarah said, that education piece and those skills you highlighted. I really like those.
Yeah, no, they're great. No, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Cameron.
I'm feeling bad here because I'm going to be the one dissenting voice on this. I actually, I kind of think part of the problem is actually the youth within the workforce rather than the actual employers.
Interesting.
And the reason why I say that is because, you know how I talked earlier about social media online?
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of videos of workers complaining rather than working, and a lot of videos of people expressing themselves during working hours rather than in their own time. We're seeing a lot of people saying a lot of things but not doing a lot. We're seeing like these what's a good example? These my day videos, what happens in a day. And it's you watch some of those videos and it's like, is this really true? Does this person hardly do any work in their day? I'm thinking back to like watching like a Twitter employees work in a day video where they're like, oh yeah, I get my first drink of the day because I really need that drink. Let's not forget about the poverty in other parts of the world. That's the vibe I get from it.
Yeah,
And then it's like,
no, that's
go to my
fair.
desk, schedule a bunch of meetings online, just talking to a bunch of people, socializing maybe.
What?
And then and then and then we're getting into like oh, I gotta get my other snack, my other drink, my other right in when I've barely done any work today already. And it's just like I get this is not the case for everyone, and I'm not saying this is the case for everyone. I'm not like trying to imply this is the case
Oh,
for
no,
everyone.
you're expressing.
But I think we need to also critically look at, are the youth trying? Like I know in most cases it is the case that the youth are trying, but at the same time we need to look at a critical lens and say, is that person trying to do the job they do and genuinely needs accommodations, which I think is reasonable,
Mhm.
or is that person like that person making a video and not getting any work done?
That's good. No, thanks, Cameron. I appreciate that. I see Nicole raised her hand there when you were speaking. Maybe she's going to intercept with a comment. Is that correct?
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
Cameron, I love when you play devil's advocate. Cameron and I are longtime friends, so this is good. I love it. But for me, I think when I say accommodations, I think I mean maybe accommodations isn't the right term, but just universal accommodations, like that flexibility. So, for example, like that employee you mentioned, like that hypothetical example, I see that on social media all the time.
Yeah.
And what I think that might be telling me, like when I look at it from less of a lens I had earlier, maybe that was more blaming, but more of a what's going wrong here? Why are we doing this? Maybe that person would be way more productive working from home, but their job doesn't offer it. Maybe maybe they don't know exactly what their tasks are, and maybe they are not operating successfully in the way that the company's set up. So how do we restructure this to make it authentic, productive work? Because if it's not, again, that two-way street. So if the young person is just trying to fit into the system and then the system is not fitting with them, you're going to have some people who maybe you don't get out of them what you could. You don't get that productivity, but also that meaningful work that you could out of them. So not only are they wasting a company's time, but maybe they have so much more potential to do things. So I think when we see that, what might look like the young people not trying, and what also might look like, how I mentioned earlier, companies or employers not trying, I think maybe it's more of a collective of, we just need to restructure how some things are done, because clearly not everything's working. And we've seen that with the pandemic. But like, for example, what Cameron said, maybe someone's better online. Maybe someone's better in a job where they're up and moving and engaging with social media all day, so they don't feel like they need to get that fix and go on their phone. Like, I know personally that's how I work best. So I think it's just highlighting that need for flexibility and need for change.
Nice. Now for everyone, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we have about 5 more minutes left, five-ish minutes left, and I'm learning a lot, and just hearing you speak, it's lighting the fire under my feet as well too. So I appreciate that, and passion. I can hear the passion in your voice about your life and what you're bringing to the table as contributors, and what you expect, in society. So it's interesting. I wondered if you could speak to that inclusion, and what does inclusion mean to you moving forward in not only our communities, but the workforce as well. And might I go to Sarah?
Yeah, so I'm gonna make this short and sweet, but when I think of inclusion, I think of like I like to use a metaphor, like a table, like a dinner party table. And inclusion is not just being invited and having a seat at the table, but it's feeling like you belong at that table, feeling like you feel accepted. Everyone around you is taking the time to talk to you and getting to know you, not just ignoring you and just saying, hey, like, we have the diversity already here. That's the inclusion's already done. No, inclusion is more than that. Inclusion is really taking the time to know the many different unique individuals that are at that table and making them feel like they belong.
Oh, that's no, absolutely. So and that they stay at the table, right? It's
Yes, exactly.
they're at that table. That door is
Yeah.
open.
Yes.
And they're in that room.
Yeah.
Nice, Sarah. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's see, Cameron or Nicole, who would like to take that one? Okay, I'm gonna pick it. Cameron?
All right. To use the table metaphor, I actually want to challenge that sort of definition because it's also making someone feel comfortable who doesn't want to be at the table.
Yeah.
It's not just thinking about making sure everyone at the table feels included. It's what if someone doesn't want to be at the table? What if someone just wants to be by themselves? Why can't they be included in a different manner? Why can't they feel accepted in sort of not being at the table, doing what they want to do rather than being forced to fit in this little bubble?
No, that's valid for sure. And when you say the table, it's in the space, in the room, and the, being welcome, period, for contribution. And, we are richer for society because of that, right? When we allow that, thank you, Cameron. Appreciate that. Nicole, we'll wrap that up there, and then we'll finalize our segment here on social awareness and youth activism. I feel like we could go on for several days, several weeks, and several hours in conversation. But I wondered if you could speak to that matter as well too, and what inclusion means to you personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And it connects with both what Sarah and Cameron said, but the word I used was opportunity. So the opportunity to authentically be part of your community. And when I say community, maybe it's not the right use of the word, but I mean your country, your province, your school, your workplace, your classroom, even your home where you live. If you're with friends, it could be an online community, but just the opportunity, maybe you don't take the opportunity to be part of that community authentically. So it's not just checking a box, like Sarah kind of said, oh, we have this here. It's not as a form of tokenism or charity. It's not mandatory attendance. It's not legislation says we have to do this, so we're going to have this many young people sitting around the table. Look at us go. It involves all people willingly and authentically participating, because I think we have this need for social connectedness and citizenly participation, but the key words for me are opportunity, authentic, and community.
So with us, not for us, kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I'm hearing from all of you. And putting the unity back in community, right? That round table of thought, I guess, if you will, or round room. I wondered if before we wrap up, I really want to shine light on community living once again. And I wondered if you could all just take a moment to do a shout out for community living. And if anyone is unaware how important it is for them to reach out if they wanted to get in touch with someone at community living. I'm going to go to Cameron. Oh, go ahead, Jennifer. Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer. Yeah.
Sure, I just wanted to start off the conversation. Yeah, we do a lot of really great work, the Reaction for Inclusion movement. We have these 3 amazing youth here that are speaking to the type of work and the potential of the committee.
Yeah.
I want to speak to one more committee that we have, which is a siblings committee, which is for youth who are siblings to individuals with disabilities. And again, it's a great youth network, a great support, and a great opportunity to get involved and, create change in the area of inclusion. I just want to start off there, and I'll pass it back to these amazing youth.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Who would like to take this? As far as yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, if that's okay with Sarah and Cameron. I've gotten a wonderful opportunity to be as a board member for Community Living Ontario, and as a youth member. So Community Living Ontario does so many things at such a high level. like this group, like the siblings movement, like they have a council for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They have family retreats. They have these conferences that they got to have some youth speak at. They have all these amazing things. And then on a smaller scale, we also have these personal connections. So I said, Cameron, Sarah, and I, we're friends now from this youth group. Sarah and I lived in the same city, but we didn't know each other. We weren't connected, but we became connected. Cameron and I are far away from each other, but I see him twice a month. And when we needed to go in person, we sat for 3 hours in a car together. So it's these large scale movements and these large scale services. But what I've loved about it is the opportunity to create these personal connections, whether that's with youth, whether I have some amazing mentors and staff and board members who are connecting with us. So Community Living Ontario, Reaction for Inclusion is part of it with their youth advisory committee, but also there's the opportunity there for that connection. It's not some big, scary organization that you're going to get lost in. There's opportunities for that one-on-one, that kind of personal stuff that I personally just love.
Amazing. I'm going to jump over to Cameron and let Sarah finish it up there with comments. Cameron.
I don't really have a lot more to add to that. Like I can't really make it sound more spectacular. It's just,
It just is spectacular.
it's spectacular how Nicole put it. But yeah, no, I'm a co-chair of the youth advisory committee. Always actively looking for members to join our merry band of misfits. I mean advocates. Sorry. The cue card there was a bit off. But no, in all seriousness, it's a great group. We get to know each other and have great conversations. So
yeah, sounded like you were talking about actors there as well. You know, I know anybody in the acting world as well. We're all, kind of the same thing that we reference. What you had just said. So thank you, Cameron. Sarah. Before we were just about to wrap up, so
yeah, just to wrap it up, Youth Advisory Committee is a really amazing, warm, welcoming group of youth who are really passionate to create change in their communities and across the country. And we all have like-minded goals, and we're all very supportive. I really grew so much as a person, as an individual, and I've become more confident in using my voice to create change. Like before, I was very quiet and shy, but now I'm a co-chair and I'm taking lead in these different projects that we are doing, and being a part of opportunities like this have really made me feel confident, and I'm excited to see what the future awaits thanks to Community Living Ontario.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And finally, Jennifer, if someone wanted to reach out to Community Living, how could they do that?
Yeah, they can check out our website, the communitylivingontario.ca. We also have a Reaction for Inclusion website. And, my email is vastly distributed on the website. And we're always, like the youth have said, we're always looking for members. We are always able to support, and we hope we can help whoever reaches out.
Amazing. I am so humbled to have spent time with you today. I thank you all very, very much for participating in Spotlight on Youth Matters and talking about social awareness and youth activism. A shout out to Youth for Change Canada for allowing us to be here. Be sure to follow us on our socials and give us any ideas for any future programming that you like, or any feedback in any of our programming. We really appreciate that. Thank you to all of our guests here today, and we'll do a final wave to our viewers, and a shout out to say thank you to our listeners as well. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. My name is Lynn McEntee, and I've been your host for Spotlight on Youth Matters. Thank you very much.